right, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Howard, my dad was T-boned by a utility vehicle and is in surgery now. What should I do?
I'm sorry to hear about that. It's really great that you're getting him the medical care and treatment that he needs right now. These are 3 important things that I think you need to know. Injuries are unexpected and turn lives upside down. I'm Howard Ankin, and I'm here to help. If you or a loved one have been hurt at work or in a car, truck, or rideshare accident, call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal. That's Ankin Law.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Hello, everyone. This is Josh Nelson of Sox Machine as we bring you a new podcast, recording this on Thursday night, July 9, 2026. As the Chicago White Sox just wrapped up their series against the Boston Red Sox, and only one word really summarizes what happened at Wright Field for the White Sox this week. Yikes. As they were swept in 3 games by the Red Sox. Not only were they swept in 3 games by the Red Sox, the White Sox only scored 2 runs in the 3 games. Here's White Sox manager Will Venable speaking post-game after being swept by Boston and the difficulties that his offense had against Boston's very tough left-handed starters.
Yeah, same story today. Just couldn't solve for some really good left-handed pitching. Got to give those guys on the other side credit. It's just extremely tough. You know, we're able to neutralize some guys that we've seen, especially versus left-handed pitching, play really well. You know, and Vargy and Grich, and those guys have done such a great job all year, and they're just really collectively just can't get it going offensively. I think they can, for sure. I don't know if that was the case this series. I think we just got beat, you know, and I think that we tried to make a bunch of adjustments. These guys were working really hard pre-game to solve for some of these dynamic fastballs that these lefties have, and we just weren't able to solve for it. So I don't want to label this one a slump, you know, but certainly a series in which we weren't able to produce offensively, which, you know, is something we're used to doing.
You guys hit very well against lefties, you know, for the first few months of the year. Are you seeing something different in how you're being attacked, whether it's, you know, the way they're attacking the inside half with, you know, fastballs that's different, or is it just you chalk it up to 3 bad games?
Yeah, I think, you know, 3 bad games. At the same time, you got to look internally and make sure that there are adjustments being made. And I think, you know, adjusting to the fastball and figuring out a way to move some of those forwards is a really good place for us to start.
Now I'm joined by Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. And hello, gents. Our last podcast episode had a hint of optimism after the White Sox were able to split a 4-game series against the Cleveland Guardians. And then this, I don't know really how to describe it other than yikes. As I mentioned in the intro, being outscored 15-2, the White Sox did not even have a single extra base hit in this series against the Boston Red Sox in the 3 games. James Fegan, what happened to the White Sox offense against Boston?
See, last time I saw the rundown like 3 hours ahead of time and I had answers prepared, whereas now kind of hectic and bouncing around. My fault. Didn't see it. So I saw just a slot of where did the offense go? And the only response I had is a defensive, I don't know, man. What do you get off my back? I certainly think like Toley was like my sleeper AL Rookie of the Year pick for Fangraphs. So on the one hand, like he started a theme that continued the whole series of just like, here's a bunch of fastballs, especially like in on the hands of right-handers over and over again, do something about it. And seeing a team that's kind of prided itself on slug, not really be able to do something about it. Obviously not great. That said, I thought like Toley's fastball being elite, like is kind of established his prospect profile. Randall Grichuk said like this Jake Bennett was like the best location they had faced all season. And You hear that sort of quote a lot when teams get like skunked in a way, like, oh, tip your cap. That guy was great. I did think he was like at least at bats where I was really locked in, like where he tied up like Brady Montgomery like early in the game, and it was really just like on perfect edge fastballs on his hands like over and over again. Like I thought he was commanding very well. At the same time, like Jake Bennett is not like prime Steve Carlton. I think there is some level of like the offense just obviously not looking good all the way through the series, even if Boston generally pitched well. Um, Certainly in stretches they faced more proven competition and done a bit better than that in a way that kind of shows they're off. And I I've always been a little iffy on their attack against lefties, and I think the statistics have been countering that all year. But it's been really heavily on like Miguel Vargas being like literally the best hitter in the league against lefties, or Randall Grichuk just like bottling everything we understand about Randall Grichuk can hit lefties like in these very compacted bursts. Whereas like now he's kind of maybe regressing back to what is normal good, but not like he's going to hit a home run every game type of production against left-handers. And without that, and without Edgar Caro, that you really kind of expected to be, the catcher who starts against lefties and does a lot of damage against them based on last season. The fact that Austin Hayes and Everson Pereira have both been out for a long time, and just when they thought they were like going to go back to having kind of a legit right-handed cornerback to put against lefties, they trade Derek Hill and Pereira runs into a wall, and now they're stuck kind of using minor league depth a little bit like Junior Perez has tools, but wasn't having a good year in AAA. Like I haven't been as discouraged as maybe some of our commenters are in terms of like what Perez could be long term, but certainly is not. There are going to be warts in like trusting that to be your regular middle of the order masher against left-handed pitching. So I think a lot of things kind of came together at the same time. Like I know from covering him for a year and a half at this point, like nothing irritates White Venable or gets him to treat his team like quite as pointedly as just like getting blown away in the zone by fastballs. And that certainly was what it was all three games.
And James mentioned Randall Grichuk, Jim. And we talked about Grichuk in our previous podcast episode previewing this upcoming series. I felt like he needed to have a big series for the White Sox, somebody else to provide some power from the right-handed side other than Miguel Vargas. He came up empty. He went 0 for 9 with 3 strikeouts and no walks in this series. And I think that's a big factor as far as this DH rotation that they have right now between the two veterans and Grichuk, and then of course Andrew Benintendi.
Yeah, it's a couple things. I mean, he did hit a couple balls hard that found gloves, and the Red Sox played pretty good defense to snuff out even the White Sox kind of need some luck to get things going, and there was no luck to be had with the weaker balls they hit, like nothing that could snowball. So like that's part of it. Part of it's like that. It's just random variation. Bennett kind of remind me of like Jose Quintana. I think would be my comp in terms of like relentless inside fastballs, and then they start looking for inside fastballs, and then he moves them up just enough to where like they're up, but they're inside, but they're also like slightly out of the zone. So he gets pop-ups or foul balls and bad counts, and then the change-ups come. He starts spotting stuff outer half, and then that gets them all out of sorts. So that was part of it. And then, like bigger picture is that they got Grichuk for free, basically. I mean, they signed him for $1.25 million, but he was a minor league contract in the offseason, was released by the Yankees. So you can't be banking on him that much, as much as the White Sox have gotten from him. And then Junior Perez not being a major leaguer, at least yet. That's your right-handed bats right now in the outfield. And once that option is shot, then you have like the situation where Jacob Gonzalez is batting against Aroldis Chapman as the last hope in the 9th inning. So you saw the depth issues being exposed, I think, in this 3-game series. So the hope is that, and you can't really bank on it, but like Austin Hayes isn't dead yet, I guess we'll say. Like he's not as replaceable as he looked when Hill and Grichuk were there and Pereira was healthy. And, like I would say Hayes is probably closer to turning than Pereira. So it looks like he'll be back in the mix, and the White Sox might need something from him yet. And you can't discount him. I mean, he's already in the fold. He's already under contract. anybody who is a right-handed bat can stand in the outfield and has a semblance of major league production, I think you have to respect and hope they can get something from.
Well, the other right-handed bat, of course, he's a switch hitter, is Braden Montgomery. And when you take a look at the Crochet Trade Trio in this series, seeking revenge, I guess, in a weird way, they got an opportunity to play in the major leagues with the White Sox, so I'm really not sure about the revenge angle. But facing their former team, Kyle Teal, 0 for 7, Chase Mydroth, 2 for 10. He needed 2 walks. That was Jim's pick for who needs a big series for the White Sox to be successful in our last episode. Mine was Braden Montgomery, and he went 1 for 11 with a walk. So the Crochet Trade, Jim, is still going well for the White Sox, but at least for this series, no additional bonus points.
Yeah, I mean, Teal starting against lefties or having to play against
It's tough.
lefties, that doesn't help him. And then you have Drew Romo starting against a lefty, so that's another thing that kind of shortens the lineup a lot. Mydroth got on base, 33% of the time. That's okay for a series. Montgomery weaker against lefties historically, but needs the plate appearances. So, that's, you're looking at Sam Antonacci, another guy who wasn't doing anything against lefties early, starting to do something now. So, these at bats for Braden, while I wouldn't even say it was tough to watch. Like I think the disciplines there are the pitch recognition, the telling strikes from balls is there. Just a matter of like getting the barrel on time. I think it's more a matter of the swing or timing it up versus, just not reading pitches well. So I think you just got to keep giving him at bats, especially when the competition right now is Junior Perez. And I think it's just a case where this is a group where lefties make them look weaker, and they did.
Sam Antonacci did.
I thought Braden looked like as dangerous as anyone on Thursday on the team, at least. Like, I think he hit the ball decently hard like 3 times. So,
and then you had another hit taken.
Had another hit taken away. Like, it wasn't a pretty start, but it's certainly with a prospect like him, you can kind of say like, oh, it looked like he was kind of figuring things out a little bit at the end. So.
Sam Antonacci went 4 for 10 in this series. He is now hitting a little bit better against left-handed pitching. Still not a lot of power. He's up to 520 OPS against southpaws. And James, I guess, as Jim kind of laid out, that with the current health of the outfield right now, there's not a lot of platoon opportunities for the White Sox. But at the same time, it feels like the White Sox want Sam Antonacci to learn on the fly here. So he's able to be in the lineup every single game despite who is on the mound. Is he going to continue to get this type of run against lefties?
I would think so more, if only because they're choosing a little bit, especially with how much they're using Perez, like to sit either Peters or Montgomery or him. So he can kind of just push that into more of a rotation than just like he's the one who sits when that happens. So, and Venable complimented him. It's clearly like something here emphasizing of just trying to, like, you mentioned not a lot of power. It's basically like, all right, he's probably not going to hit for power against him. Let's just try to lash some singles to left field is the explanation of what he's trying to do against left-handers. And, he's able to do that a little bit. And I think with where they're at until like Austin Hayes, like his rehab assignment wouldn't be until after the All-Star break. Like there's going to be at least a couple more series of them trying to figure it out without really having a right-handed quarterback. So yeah, this is runway for him to keep doing that or give himself a chance. And he's been moving up from like not playing to like batting 9 to batting 6, not while the team is thriving, but certainly like indicates like his place on, the pecking order is, only going up, if not dramatically.
Having a daily routine is crucial. For me, daily walks with my dog are a non-negotiable part of my wellness routine to get some fresh air and clear my mind. And after those walks, it's easy to grab my favorite all-in-one nutrition shake and take it wherever I'm off to next with Kachava's new travel packs. One easy-to-use packet provides complete nutrition ready for life on the go with protein, fiber, vitamins and minerals, greens, probiotics, omegas, electrolytes, and more. Kachava has 8 great flavors, including chocolate, vanilla, chai, matcha, coconut acai, strawberry, coffee, and my favorite, backed by popular demand, chocolate mint. Take your daily ritual with you. Go to Kachava.com and use code SPORTS for 15% off your first order. That's Kachava, spelled Kachava.com, and code SPORTS.
Well, hopefully the White Sox offense fares a lot better against the Athletics this upcoming weekend. We'll be previewing that series later in the show. A big part of the White Sox offense will be returning, as we'll talk about Munetaka Murakami later. But on the pitching side for this series, Davis Martin, not a great start. So this is back-to-back starts where he's not able to get through 5 innings. Davis Martin only went 4 innings against the Boston Red Sox. He allowed 5 earned runs on 6 hits, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. In his last 7 starts for Davis Martin, he has an earned run average of 6.34. He has reached 100 innings, and that was his last start before the All-Star break. So if he's not added to the American League All-Star team, he's going to get some additional rest. And I wonder, James, last year, we saw this with Shane Smith, that he was starting to sputter entering the All-Star break. Is Davis Martin going through the same thing here, where maybe he's just a little bit out of gas at the halfway point?
He certainly says so. I feel better about writing like a month's worth of pieces, kind of trying to politely hint at the idea that he was fatigued, for him to say at the end of his last start, like, yeah, I'm worn out, or I'm tired, I'm going to need this break, in a way that, you know, the velocity isn't like top, but it isn't like what's falling apart. It sounds like it's just really hard for him to like be consistent with some of the timing of his delivery and his command with the way he's feeling right now. And so, you know, if this was 8 years ago, or talking about like how they schedule things out with Don Cooper, you'd expect him to be like the last guy out of the All-Star break, to give him like this big extended rest. And, you know, certainly right now he seems like, you know, the squeakiest wheel in a sense, in that way. But that said, like, Noah Schultz has obviously not thrown big innings, or even like, I think, north of 100 innings in any year of his career. So that's something to consider. You know, on top of the fact he just hasn't been performing recently. And then Sean Burke and is probably in a similar point as far as like maxing out around 148 innings as Martin, though he obviously is throwing harder and better than ever right now. There's enough other guys who aren't like, you know, Anthony Kay had a pretty long, you know, season last year, but it hasn't like necessarily had like a 180 inning campaign or something like that. Long story short, there are other guys that they would have like, you know, measures about like considering their workload. I just think like Martin's kind of like the obvious point. We still haven't necessarily heard, you know, the final rosters of what subs will needed, and, you know, certainly he'd be willing to do it. I don't think he turned it down for this reason, since it would be like an inning on regular rest, but certainly doesn't feel like a bad time for him to just kind of shut it down entirely as well. Not entirely, I'm sure he'll be throwing and whatnot, but like the idea of him getting 2 weeks off between starts, with, you know, the way he talked after his last one, that seems fine. Shane Smith could be similar. You know, they're both kind of like, how much is poor command about fatigue? How much is about like Smith just like really not having much track record of starting at all to that degree? But as far as like a broad strokes type of thing, I don't know if Shane Smith is going to, with just immaculate timing, suffer a ankle sprain in you know, post All-Star break workouts. I don't think there'll be a repeat of that necessarily to get Martin extra rest, but seems like a similar concept overall.
And then James mentioned Noah Schultz. Jim, Schultz went 5 innings. He allowed 7 hits, 4 earned runs. He walked 3, struck out 3, and that is start number 10 in his rookie season. So we have 10 starts of data for Noah Schultz, and right now his earned run average is 6. He's pitched 48 innings. He's got 43 strikeouts and 29 walks. What do you make of the first 10 career starts for Noah Schultz?
It's not what you want, I think, based on what he looks like when he's at his best in the minor leagues. That version hasn't been seen in the majors, and it's hard to know with the knee issue. Like, that's been the common thread when he hasn't looked like himself, when he hasn't thrown strikes, when the slider has been less than imposing. It turns out that he tends to go on the injured list when that happens, and he doesn't say anything about it until after he's on the injured list. and there's no real, reference to it or talk about mitigation. Anything he's pitching through just kind of happens. Then you reverse engineer like, oh, that's the reason why I wasn't throwing strikes. And so when he comes back from the injured list and he's still not throwing strikes, it's a case where like, is it still fine? And, he seems to not want to talk about it, which is his right. But in terms of adjusting your expectations or just the kind of, following patterns, or, whether you just take it like that, or if you take it like a little bit of umbrage, like, fool me twice, then it's my problem. Depending on how you look at it, it's just a case where it's hard to know exactly what, whether he's pitching his best, whether you're seeing him applying his best and major league hitters just aren't phased, or whether he's showing up with like 80% of his stuff. And as a rookie who's just, not having what he had when he was at his best in the minors, it's actually okay. And he's serving a purpose, and you hope that he gets better to where he can flash that, if not number one stuff, like number two, based on the way he was throwing in the minors, when he peaked, like not ridiculous, say he's number two starter, ceiling. So yeah, that's what I think what makes it tricky.
Yeah, Len Casper and Darren Jackson on the radio side for the White Sox broadcast continue to bring up Randy Johnson because we don't have many examples in Major League Baseball history of left-handed pitchers who are 6 feet tall, 6'10" and taller, like Schultz and Johnson. And Darren Jackson keeps bringing up the point, it took a long time for Randy Johnson to figure it out, like until he was like age 27, which I think Schultz is right now 22, 23 years old. So maybe it takes 4 more seasons for Noah Schultz to figure it out. But as we have learned in this day and age, White Sox fans are not all that patient, Jim. And
Randy Johnson walked 128 batters in 140 innings in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
That wasn't there in the minors, whereas, Schultz could always throw strikes.
Yes.
I think that argument is like great for Noah Schultz. Randy Johnson's development path didn't work out great for the Montreal Expos. It worked out great for his second org. And I think even Bannister has made jokes about like that. Like sometimes they say like they're really great XL tall pitchers, like they're really stars for their second org. And that's funny, but would not be like, I think, a good outcome here for what they're trying to accomplish, especially an organization that's so reliant on pre-arbitration talent for driving their return to competition at this point. So yeah, point well taken as far as Randy Johnson comes, but not comforting from the narrow perspective of talking to a team focused audience.
Well, let's talk about that idea, because while reading ESPN.com today, Jeff Passan wrote about a realistic trade scenario for the contending teams and a dream trade consideration for contending teams. And his for the White Sox was the same player, Reid Detmers with the Los Angeles Angels. And as Passan wrote about as far as the dream aspect of this partnership, more so from the angle of the Los Angeles Angels and Artie Moreno, their owner, finally need to pick a lane. A little bit overdue, and Passan is advocating, and I think many around Major League Baseball are advocating for the Angels to start rebuilding, meaning that you don't just trade Reid Detmers, but you finally trade Mike Trout. And in a possible hypothetical deal with the White Sox, Jeff Passan suggested the idea that maybe Noah Schultz could be involved in such a trade. Jim, would that be too soon? Like, is it too soon to talk about adding Noah Schultz into a potential trade?
Not necessarily, just because of the injury concern and the fact that, he's had a hard time staying on the mound. It reminds me a little bit, I think, of a couple situations of which ways it could go. One is, Daniel Hudson would be one, somebody who was thrust into a rotation that had postseason aspirations, and he wasn't quite getting it done. And so they traded him for Edwin Jackson. And then he went on to have a nice year with Diamondbacks, and then arm problems set in. But for a while, it looked like they lost that trade. And then afterwards, when Hudson was more of a reliever, hindsight looked like a okay trade. Neither side kind of got what they wanted ultimately. Like Jackson was a competent professional. Like I'd like to say if James Shields turned out to be Edwin Jackson in that trade, and they gave up Fernando Tatis for Edwin Jackson, and Jackson provided, or Shields provided like the 200 decent innings, and they didn't make the postseason, but it wasn't his fault. Like you could see what the White Sox were going for and said Shields crapped the bed, and that's why it hurts. But Jackson was fine, and like Hudson didn't quite pan out in that starter role, so it hurt initially, but it was worth doing, or at least you understand it. Like, you could run it back and maybe make the same case again. The other one is like Nick Madrigal, who just every injury he had kind of sapped his ceiling just because he just kept getting hurt. And like, just every leg injury saps his speed, which, already hurt him when he lost a grade of speed. And you think like, shoulder injury, everything like that's going to sap every bit of power he needs. So when they traded him for Craig Kimbrell, when he's on the injured list, it struck me as like, okay, like you don't know how he's going to come back from the injury. Let's see how that happens. And turns out like trading Madrigal is fine. Like the timing was fine. The problem was either getting Kimbrell or exercising his option. So that's kind of how I look at it in those regards. For initially, I was like, ooh, that feels like robbing Peter to pay Paul. On the other hand, you can try to suss out or try to map out some scenarios, and you could see one where Schultz never quite stays healthy. And then you look at it like, well, Detmers, if Detmers on the block and they could have gotten him, that could have been good. So yeah, it's interesting enough, and to where I think it's fine. Like I saw a lot of objections to it, but it doesn't strike me as senseless or reckless. I can see an argument for it.
James, do you agree? Do you think that could be possible?
So the first two observations I have is that, yeah, Hudson became a reliever long term. June 17th, 2011, when Hudson threw a complete game against the Sox and hit an RBI double off of Edwin Jackson because pitchers still hit, that was a rough night on the White Sox blogosphere.
Yep.
There was no like, this is going to be an okay trade down the road feelings back then. I remember that. I didn't know what to write. I didn't feel like I could match anyone's anger properly.
I remember writing about saying like that was basically the worst possible representation of this deal.
It's one until like they show progress, you're almost it's not cheating. Like sending 3 distressed assets to the Angels, like, well, it's not going to look bad because you're just sending them to the place where like these projects would all go to die. Yeah, they're probably not going to figure out how to get Noah Schultz right, or yeah, like William Burgoa. Well, this is another 9 months with a shin bruise for somehow once he joins the Angels.
It's like paying Alexander Albertus forward.
It's like, well, we clearly got out at the right time, even if like Reid Detmers has like a 4.50 ERA. It's like, well, these sage geniuses, how do we question them? Like they like, I don't know what they do to mess up Billy Carlson, but just like all of a sudden he like can't stick at shortstop now, but hits home runs with a low OBP. That'd be the typical Angels player. It's, you kind of think like you're selling low on like 3 different guys in one trade. And certainly with the way they've talked about Schultz in the past, and bringing him up, it would represent like, okay, you've clearly like either soured on him or gotten really worried about the knee, or gotten like worried about how quickly you can turn this around or get this right over the last like 2-3 months, in a way that like there seems like there's a real story to tell about that based on like what this was sold as up until this point. Whereas like Burgoya, it certainly started out great, but up until like this season, I was like, this, all right, it's a 0 power, like utility infielder. Like it's a nice, fun player and profile, and it's a useful big leaguer, but it's not like a core piece that you have to hoard and can't put on the market. And then Carlson, like there's a chance that like that becomes like a very easy, like annual 2 to 3 win player just on defense alone. At the same time, like at least at this juncture where it seems like it's undecided whether the bat is really going to click at all to become a regular, and that's exacerbated the fact that he's been shut down by injuries. So there's no been sign of progress in the last 6 weeks that he hasn't been playing. it feels like you could definitely make your peace for it at this time. I just worry like we're kind of prisoners in the moment of looking at all these guys where I can see them as like, well, if there's not an upturn from here, yeah, this wouldn't be a bad time if you really think Detmers is like a multi-year starter in this rotation for a team that's maybe not like win the World Series right now, but certainly is going to be expecting to compete for the division next year and a year after that with the current group you have. So I definitely could get behind it. I would definitely want to hear a lot more about how they came to do it if it went down, because clearly this would represent a change from how these players were being valued, certainly the centerpiece in April, in a way that, let's set up the interviews now, Chris and then Brian, if that's the way things go. But at this present of the moment time, we're like, oh man, they got to win this division, and I'm kind of like don't see what's happening right now, or can't see what like the vision towards dominance with any of these profiles. Yeah, it makes sense, but it feels very you better know type of a decision, or not, because the Angels will make you look fine either way.
True, because the Angels.
Imagine buying your kid a toy only to find the batteries aren't included, or buying furniture but missing the tools to build it. Frustrating, right? Now imagine the exact same feeling, but you're paying way more. That is what buying business software usually feels like. Fragmented, disconnected, and incredibly expensive. Odoo completely changes that. Odoo is a complete, fully integrated business suite where all your apps actually talk to each other. We're talking automated lead routing for your sales team, seamless AI integration, and intuitive point-and-click website builder. It's everything your business needs to scale, saving you time, headaches, and money. Stop piecing your software together. Go to odoo.com. That's ODOO.com to learn more.
I guess I'm not against the idea of trading Noah Schultz. It just took me aback because I really hadn't thought about the idea. And I owe Josh Friedman, our friend over at WGN, a clip, because when I joined him and Jared Payne on GN Sports in early March to talk about this upcoming season, I pitched the idea that maybe the White Sox heading to the All-Star break could be hovering around 500 and taking Rock Chalowski, and it'll be feeling like a lot happier on the south side than on the north side. And voila, I'm looking good so far. But in that same interview, I thought that we would see tremendous progress from Noah Schultz, Hagen Smith, and Tanner Verdugo was throwing triple digits in spring training. That's where White Sox fans should be excited. Wrong. That's like 3 X's right now. Well, maybe 2.5. McDougal's moving over to the bullpen, so there's still some time. But I think it's still early. Like, I don't want to be incredibly harsh in criticism of Noah Schultz. He's learning. Maybe because the White Sox are a contending team and leading the American League Central, Jim, it shortens the leash that the White Sox can afford if they are changing their minds and they want to win the division this year, and how many more starts and how patient they are with Noah Schultz. We're still waiting for Hagen Smith, right, to throw after his shoulder injury. He hasn't pitched yet.
He's supposed to literally throw today.
Okay. And
today being
McDougal's
Thursday, because whoever's listening to this is living in the future.
Yes. And McDougal is moving to the bullpen, which I'm okay with that move. But
basically, he has, and he's going to stay there.
Yeah, the starting depth for the White Sox has been really impacted this season and even last year as well. So if the Angels, with an interim general manager, are going to have some type of teardown, and let's say Jeff Passan has some real dope here, and this dream scenario is moving 2 of your more recent first-round picks in Noah Schultz and Billy Carlson to the Angels for Reid Detmers, I guess I'm not against that idea, Jim. The more that we talk about it and think about it, it's just literally this morning, Jim, was the first time I ever thought of the White Sox possibly trading Noah Schultz, and I didn't know how to feel about it.
That's why Magical came to mind, just because when he got traded was like, I didn't know that was possible.
Us.
I didn't know he had a market, and it happened. And when I thought about it, it just, makes sense to deal him before knowing what he looks like when he comes back. So just with Detmers, like, I think I'd be a little bit more gung-ho about it if he had thrown more than 150 innings in a season. Like, I think if you're looking for somebody to reinforce the rotation over the last 2 months, you'd want somebody who's not like going to run into his own innings wall maybe towards the end, and then you could end up being just kind of disappointed or unimpressed with the way everything's kind of unfolded. So yeah, that's why I think I wouldn't be necessarily for it. I could just understand how he came to that conclusion, but it's just a matter of like the ERA has gone up recently, and he's always been somebody who his ERA has always been above his FIP. Like he's kind of like the Javier Vasquez thing of just should be better. When he seems going to figure it out, and never quite does it. And perhaps the White Sox can because of the Angels factor and just how everybody seems more or less adrift or left at their own devices on that roster. But that would be my one concern, I think, for that specific deal this year is, does Detmers have enough in the tank to get through 6 months, especially if you're trading Schultz, who is one of your rotation pieces? That's maybe Jonathan Cannon's kind of coming up to provide an extra start or two. Like, he's not gonna be somebody who, is going to be a postseason rotation, but in terms of giving somebody a blow just to be able to take a week off, Cannon might be able to do that. You're looking for that kind of arm, I think, from Charlotte from here on to the rest of the season. But anybody adding from the outside, I think, is somebody you want confidence in that over the last 2 months they can look like they've looked.
Yeah, and the other thing I just thought of, we were hoping that this season that Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith would answer the question of who would help out a 2027 or lead a 2027 pitching staff for the Chicago White Sox. I think that confidence is pretty low at this moment that you can count on them. I know next year is next year, but again, we were thinking in 2026 was going to be another rebuilding year for the White Sox, and that whole future starting rotation for the ball club is hazy. So if you can get someone like Reid Detmers and you have to trade Noah Schultz, I wonder if that tells us, James, that the White Sox front office is a little bit more confident that Reid Detmers could lead a rotation for the White Sox in 2027 than Noah Schultz.
I mean, you would have, Martin, Burke, and Kay all back for next year to start.
Yeah.
And at least like some of these options, whether it's McDougal stretching out, or Drew Thorpe is, it seems like iffy for the season at this point, but like there's at least like a mass of people that are kind of fifth starter candidates, and then you have just you literally got Fetty for Randall Grichuk prices this season. Like there's not like necessarily, oh man, they have to sign 3 starters if Reid Detmers doesn't work out, sort of like depth fault. Obviously injuries can pop up or anyone can go down spring training, but maybe not mega dire. It'd be nicer to have like Christian Opper, pushing up as an option for 2027. And obviously that's not, how it's worked out.
How's he doing?
Look, let's move on. I should flesh out what you were talking about with Hagen Smith because, Giannis was talking to the media on Thursday, and McDougal's there were hints about it weeks ago that this was happening, and then his first 3 outings were all in the bullpen, and like this was Giannis coming out today, and I think McDougal said it openly in Charlotte too, like I'm sticking here for the rest of the year, and that's fine. And I think McDougal was a little surprised by it, but still also like he got added to the 40-man last year. He's like, I go move to the bullpen if it got me to Chicago, and came to fruition. So I feel like that was a little like, this is finalized, we're ready to say this publicly type of situation. Whereas with Hagen, he's just starting throwing again, and McDougal missed 2 months. Hagen's been a month at this point and is just starting to ramp up. But it's a similar situation of like, it's now more than halfway through the season. We're in the July. Do you want to go through the process of ramping this guy all the way up to get him to start again? When 1, he ran into shoulder impingement, and 2, like he wasn't necessarily looking like he was ready starting wise and command wise. And so I kind of asked Giannis, like, what's so different in the calculus here that you wouldn't just like make a similar move with Hagen of just have him finish the year in the bullpen? And they're not at the point of like, yeah, Hagen's going to be the bullpen, but Giannis was like, they're not different. They're pretty similar. That's a good comparison. So I think like, obviously they want to get to the point where like Hagen's ramped up, he's healthy, he's throwing in games, but it seems like it's trending towards a very similar outcome of thinking him more as a likely multi-inning reliever or just a reliever down the stretch than really seeing him taking one of the rotation spots. So when you're approaching the trade market, I think McDougal, Smith, really relying on those being like somebody who comes in and just starts taking the ball every fifth day. It sounds like that's a little by the board already, and that might be a little bit more impetus of like, hey, if we're going to get someone who really just comes and becomes a part of the rotation and takes the ball every fifth day, and we're counting on that to ride out the season, maybe it's going to have to be external, or you're going to have to like get really convicted about Mason Adams in a period of time where I think it's understandable they still could because he is relatively early in his TJ rehab and he really didn't pitch much at AAA before that. But I think that with what all we've listed out and all the scenarios we've talked about, that alone could kind of get you to why they might need to be aggressive in terms of getting a starter at the deadline, because it's a little tortured path to seeing what the solution internally. And we also asked him straight up about like Drew Thorpe. Do you think he'll pitch as the majors this year? Is like not really in position to promise that. So,
well, then it was an idea that I read today. I did not have that notion in my mind, but after we've talked through it, I wouldn't be against it. I would be surprised that the White Sox, I wouldn't necessarily give up on Noah Schultz. He would still be a starter in the major leagues just for the Angels, but there is a need. And in order to fulfill that need with quality, if it takes trading Noah Schultz, I guess I'm not against it after this conversation. Let us know how you guys feel, either in the comment section on SoxMachine.com, or for those that are watching the video, let us know in the comments below of the YouTube video. Also, a quick shout out on the pitching side. Seranthony Dominguez pitched twice and he didn't allow a run. Progress. How did he look to you, James?
Another case of putting your thumb on the scale where you're just confirming your thesis, but he looked like Seranthony Dominguez in the sense that he got out of both those innings and started both of them like a little loosey-goosey and spraying the ball, and then his delivery kind of slowly got in sync, and he worked his way out of it. I think he put like the first two guys on in one of his, or two out of his first three, with a walk and a single, and then like started getting ahead of hitters every now and then, and it looked a bit different. It wasn't as stressful because it was like the sixth and they were trailing type of situation. Like it didn't look fundamentally different. It was successful. It did kind of speak to his talent. He was throwing very hard. Ball was moving a lot. It still looked like, wow, if he did that in the ninth inning of a one-run game, you probably wouldn't be enjoying it, even if it worked. So it continues to be like, this is stuff over a command reliever who, hopefully we see the hot streak at some point in the year. Second half is a better time to do it than the first, except for the fact of, retaining your closer status.
Imagine buying your kid a toy only to find the batteries aren't included, or buying furniture but missing the tools to build it. Frustrating, right? Now imagine the exact same feeling, but you're paying way more. That is what buying business software usually feels like. Fragmented, disconnected, and incredibly expensive. Odoo completely changes that. Odoo is a complete, fully integrated business suite where all your apps actually talk to each other. We're talking automated lead routing for your sales team, seamless AI integration, and intuitive point-and-click website builder. It's everything your business needs to scale, saving you time, headaches, and money. Stop piecing your software together. Go to odoo.com. That's ODOO.com to learn more.
Well, for the Chicago White Sox, they continue this homestand, and they're hoping this weekend it's a lot better against the Athletics than it was against the Boston Red Sox. The Athletics are really struggling. So that's the complete opposite, where the Red Sox were on a heater heading to Chicago. The Athletics just lost again to the Detroit Tigers in Detroit. The Athletics are 41-52 this year. They're fourth place in the American League West. They are currently 5.5 games out of the American League wild card. The Athletics have lost 6 straight games, and they are 1-9 in their last 10. They're all right on the road. They're 22-24 this season. Your pitching probables for this series, Friday night at 6:40 p.m. Central Time. This is a sellout, as it's Mexican Heritage Night at Wright Field. To be determined for the Athletics against Sean Burke, who has been very good for the White Sox. Saturday afternoon at 1:10 p.m. Central Time. This is also Major League Baseball Draft Day and also the Alumni Home Run Derby Day for the White Sox. It'll be another left-handed starter against the White Sox offense. This time for the Athletics, it's Gage Jump. And for the White Sox, it's Eric Fetty, but also stay tuned, especially on social media. Follow James at JR Fegan if the White Sox decide to have an opener on Saturday. And then on Sunday, last call before the All-Star break, it'll be JT Ginn for the Athletics and Noah Schultz, we just spoke about in great length. And for this series, the White Sox are getting some good news. It is the return of Munetaka Murakami, as Murakami has recovered from his hamstring injury. He played a couple games down in Charlotte to get some game reps, and then he flew up, I believe, either Wednesday night or on Thursday to Chicago to rejoin the team. At this moment, we do not know what the corresponding move will be for the Chicago White Sox in adding Munetaka Murakami. You can get that news, again, either on social media or be able to read on SoxMachine.com. But James, it feels like, do you have insight? Do you have an idea of what the move is?
Jacob Gonzalez got called into the manager's office, then got hugged from his teammates, and then started putting things in a duffel bag in front of his locker. Didn't seem like I needed to go to the next level of going over and asking him, but it seems pretty clear both on kind of squishiness about what his usage would be with Murakami, how he's pretty much not played anything but first base and taken at bats against right-handed starters as first baseman. I would think it's Jacob Gonzalez is going to be the corresponding move for Munetaka Murakami.
Okay, well, we got some good moments out of Jacob Gonzalez. He finally reached the major leagues. I'm sure he'll rejoin the White Sox before this season's end. And for Murakami, James, only 2 games of reps with Charlotte and now rejoin the White Sox in this last series before the All-Star break. And at this moment, we don't know Murakami is going to be part of the All-Star festivities. They've still yet to announce the final 2 hitters of the Home Run Derby. They are including hitters that are not elected to the All-Star team to be part of the Home Run Derby. So maybe Murakami will join you in Philadelphia during the All-Star festivities and participate in that Home Run Derby. But at this moment, we don't know. So I'm kind of curious as far as the timing. Why are the White Sox bringing Murakami now instead of giving him maybe an extra weekend to rest?
Seems like they want him. I think he wants to be active. I certainly don't think they beat around the idea of like even sending him on a rehab assignment, talking about like, well, could we just have him play the field, play like, do defensive drills, play some sim games, or hit off the trajectory. They ultimately went with a short one. They certainly need him in terms of like what their offenses look like. They feel like they could get a jolt. I think Murakami really is banging the drum and wants to play is part of it. And they're right at 6 weeks, pretty much to the dot. So I think all the points were why not? And hey, if he gets active and they win some games they kind of need to win based on the series that just came in, and he's around to be active. There's an invite for floating around for a home run derby, like all the better. Other than like the fact that like he could be rusty, I feel like there's not really any like big, with only 2 rehab games, there's not like a big warning sign for or feeling like he was rushed up in some sense. He got through a full game. He played in the field. He has been pretty much in spring training in terms of what he's been willing or offering himself to do as far as workload. Kind of insane, but that's his vibe. It seemed like it worked out for him for the most part. Maybe he won't be stealing bases upon return quite as aggressively as he was right before the injury, but this seems like something that he's been through most of the paces, and certainly knowing the player and how he's acted was probably pushing to do as soon as possible.
And then for this weekend and this particular series, Jim, with the White Sox stubbing their toe against Boston, Cleveland having difficulty with the Minnesota Twins, when you take a look at the American League Central standings now, the White Sox and Guardians are tied once again entering the final weekend before the All-Star break, as both teams are 2 games above 500. But there's the Minnesota Twins, who are 2 games back now, and the Detroit Tigers, who are 4.5 games back. The Tigers are 43-50, but they've won their last 5, and they won 8 of their last 10 games. So looking at this series against the Athletics, Jim, just from a morale perspective, how important is this series for the White Sox?
I think the All-Star break right around the corner helps in terms of being able to reset. So I think in terms of if they go limping into the break, obviously is a downer for just having to dwell on it a little bit for fans who are thinking about looking at the standings. But this would be the time to need a reset versus like going into like a 13 games in 13 days and not having any answers. So I think no matter what, the break will serve them well. I think having a couple lefties coming up for the Athletics right after lefty shut them down poses a well-timed challenge, I think, because they are lesser lefties on paper. So if they struggle again, you kind of get to this I guess philosophical debates of, well, you know what the White Sox need to add. Could also be a case of, well, do the White Sox need to add, or are they just kind of throwing good money after bad if they just really need so much help against lefties and just aren't having it? So I think that's maybe the danger is if the stretch goes too long before the deadline for fans wanting them to add, for wanting to reinforce, you want the White Sox to provide real reasons. And yeah, I mean, the Athletics have lost 6 in a row, so this would be the time to get right. And if you are the White Sox and you are the fuel for an Athletics turnaround, that doesn't necessarily build a lot of confidence. So I think that's maybe the focus I'm looking at with this series is, can they produce against any left-handed starter? Be it, good ones like the Red Sox had, or iffy ones like the Athletics are putting forth. I think that's where I'm looking at in more of a micro sense versus a big picture sense, because you have the break and then we'll see what they look like after the break, which could be either a different team or just, the Tigers continue to look good and the standings that you thought would be the standings before the season are more or less coming on late, but were never like imaginary to begin with.
Yeah, and a reminder,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say a reminder that the White Sox after the All-Star break have a road trip. They'll be visiting the Toronto Blue Jays and then make their way from Toronto down to Arlington to face the Texas Rangers.
I just wanted to specify that when I call players insane, it's almost 99% complimentary. We enjoy Sam Antonacci's insanity. Talking to Tim Anderson about what he sees when someone's throwing 100 at him, I think he sees things at a different speed that probably makes him insane. The best players are insane, I feel like. So compliment to Murakami that he's rushing back to lay down his body for the glorious title of the AL Central. A truly insane thing to do.
Well, again, hopefully the White Sox play a lot better, just with at least one game, so we can say that you're above 500 entering the All-Star break. I did not think that was going to be at risk a couple of weeks ago, but now it kind of is. The Guardians have a tough series. The Guardians have to face the Miami Marlins, and the Miami Marlins have been red hot. They've been playing some of the best baseball in the league. So we'll see where the American League Central standings shake out. But ready or not, the White Sox are part of a heated race now for the division, something we weren't expecting, but that's where we are entering the All-Star break this season. And as I mentioned on Saturday, it's a pretty important day for the Chicago White Sox. For the first time since 1977, when they drafted Harold Baines first overall, the Chicago White Sox will be having the first overall pick. Jim Margulis and I will be live streaming on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sox Machine, to provide our live reactions to the White Sox making that first overall pick. James will also be contributing as well, as he'll be speaking with the White Sox as they'll be holding their draft operations at Wright Field. If you do have tickets for Saturday's game, the White Sox are actually going to be hosting a watch party at Wright Field before first pitch between the White Sox and Athletics when they announce their first overall pick. You can go to soxmachine.com and read all of the work that we have written about this upcoming draft. And I also shared my thoughts on the cases for and the cases against Grady Emerson, Rock Chalowski, and Vaughn Lackey to go first overall. But for the White Sox marketing team, they could not be more excited for the Alumni Home Run Derby. And let's get pumped up because your Home Run Derby participants are Jose Canseco, Alexei Ramirez, Gordon Beckham, Lurie Garcia, Scott Pasetnik, and Daniel Palka. Jim Margulis, I'm not asking you who's going to win this Home Run Derby. I'm asking you, is anyone going to hit a home run in this Home Run Derby? Out of these contestants, who is most likely to hit a home run?
Few questions. One, are they playing with regulation bats and balls? Are they going to play with like juiced balls somehow, or
I hope so.
Aluminum bats?
I think it is wood bats. They have this special Blue Moon baseball. It's like an orange baseball.
Okay.
So it could be juiced.
Okay. Well, you had you can make a joke about is there drug testing, and that would apply to two players, not just one, given that Alexei in the World Baseball Classic had a run in. So I think he would be Alexei, just given that he was in game shape most recently, maybe would be, if not the favorite. I think Palka recently, youngest, I think, in the field, and the most recent slugging exploits seems like he should probably have the best shot, but I think Alexei is probably number two. Jose Canseco as one of the legions of people who have a Canseco 31 White Sox jersey in his closet. Not sure what I'm expecting there. Just given just the way he's kind of melted down personally, just more or less a cautionary tale for growing up and making a ball player a hero, or it's like a very educational experience of having Jose Canseco as your favorite player when you're a kid and realizing like, oh, let's not follow his lead. Let's appreciate talent and not make too much of it. Because it didn't necessarily go well for him. So curious to see what kind of emotions, if any, that'll stir in me for just nostalgia or sadness or what. But yeah, I'm thinking Alexei is probably my favorite, both in terms of think he could do it and also like, hey, good for him.
James, how about you? Any confidence that any of these six can actually hit a home run?
Palka hit like 10 home runs in like a Mexican league in 40 games or 41 games like 2 years ago. Was like a huge exit velo dude. Under 40 still. Not, buying him, like drop him in against like live major league pitching right this moment. But as far as like any home run, I feel like at least the guy I observed, he's only 34 years old. Good God, he's a miracle. I feel pretty good that he'd be able to do it. He feels almost like a ringer, given how close he is to, being active. Like they want to make sure somebody can hit a home run. I think he'd be the guy to do it. Scott Pasetnik talked to media in back of the press box on Thursday. He seems deeply skeptical of his ability to hit a home run. He seems honored to be here. He's a good sport, but like was talking about like his daughters being like mystified about why he was selected for this, and says he's only hit like 3 times off a tee since it's been announced. He hasn't faced like the ball coming toward him in some way. So I certainly think there could be some rounds where it would behoove him to juice the ball in some way. But Palka seems like he'd be able to do it. I think physically get the ball over his fence. That's a lot easier for me to buy into than like, especially as I get older and how I feel like in my late 30s, like the idea that Jose Canseco, Hall of Fame talent, or at least that caliber, at least, but 63 is that's more power to him if he can, for sure.
Hey, Luke Appling hit a homer at 75. Granted, it was with fences slightly drawn in, but that's your role model there.
Be dispiriting for the White Sox to like go continue like their homeless drought in this Saturday and then see like Jose Canseco launch him halfway up the concourse.
Yeah, I have a feeling this is going to be a Daniel Palka, Alexei Ramirez championship for the home run derby. I think Lurie might hit one into the craft cave. I think if he bats left-handed, I think he can pull one. Gordon Beckham, we'll see. We'll see. But I'm with you, Jim. Alexi Ramirez being in game shape, getting ready for the World Baseball Classic. And I did not know that Daniel Polko played in the Mexican League and hit 10 homers. So
yeah,
I
Larry
think Daniel Polko
was in the Mexican League last year, played some winter ball.
Okay.
Yeah, he had 4 homers, 36 games. So I think he has the most recent example, or he has the most recent success when it comes to putting professional pitching of any kind over the fence. So yeah, I think it's a 3-horse race in this case.
All right. Well,
with Lurie and Pasadnik, it's like they realize that these homers are notable a little bit because they were surprising, right? Like, and just Google White Sox famous home runs and not put any more context into it. The search.
It feels like, like a one-hit wonder coming back, just like play the song again. It's like Survivor. Play opening and closing with Eye of the Tiger. Maybe playing it once in the middle.
Like Survivor's going to play a 90-minute set. Like,
But I think were they ones that open and close the Eye of the Tiger might have played it once in the middle just to keep fans there. Like I could see the same thing.
I'm just hoping somebody hits a home run. Like that's my concern is nobody hits a home run. And then I don't know how you just work the home run derby.
Torn like pectoral muscles, just dropping down to one knee in the box.
Yep. Well, we'll see how it goes. I'm sure there'll be plenty of video. Again, the MLB draft will be also ongoing, so that'll be most of our attention on Sox Machine. But let us know in the comment section who is your pick to click for the alumni home run derby for the Chicago White Sox. And that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. If you just discovered the Sox Machine podcast, you can subscribe to the audio version wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. Watch our videos on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. Again, we'll be live streaming around 12:30 p.m. Central Time on Saturday, leading up to the first pick of the Major League Baseball draft. And you can follow us on social media. Lots of news will be incoming. Follow us on at Sox Machine. Follow James at JR Fegan. He'll be also in Philadelphia next week covering the Major League Baseball All-Star Game for us and the Futures Game. So a lot more content coming this upcoming week in Philadelphia from James. And you can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. If you enjoy our work and want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox, Major League Baseball, and this weekend's Major League Baseball draft, subscribe at SoxMachine.com/products to unlock all that access and also unlock the comment section and get ad-free versions of both the podcast and website. The White Sox still have a winning record, so it doesn't get any cheaper now to sign up for a subscription. Please do so, as we're trying to build up a postseason travel fund as well. And that's how those subscriptions help us so we can send James out on the road and Jim to the minor league affiliates to get more coverage of the Chicago White Sox. So again, visit SoxMachine.com/products and sign up today. The Sox Machine podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball. Alongside James Fegan and Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.